Well, that's why we've only known about Neowise since the end of March.
Well, the short answer is that this is a comet on an extremely stretched out orbit. So, I mean, it comes from way out, comes way in, and that means it comes in fast. These really long orbits, these comets are basically in free fall from the outer fringes of the solar system, so they can come zipping in at a real breakneck pace.
I mean, they don't come around that often, comets.
Well, so, if you look across all of human history, the earliest comets in recorded history, the Chinese recorded back in the 7th century BC. But if you look at all the ones that have been bright enough for people to make a note of, on average, they come around roughly once every decade. So, about every 10 years, you expect a pretty decent comet. Well, we've had a drought, right? Since Hale-Bopp, it's been 23 years. And of course, that's how the law of averages go. So this is the one we've been kind of waiting for the last 10 years or so.
So see it while you can.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been telling people, don't wait. Literally one day can make a big difference in terms of how visible it is. And right now it's kind of undergoing this outburst from having passed the sun. But it could basically shut off almost like a light switch overnight. You never know.
Folks, another major lightning event. Another one that looks like it's an Earth discharge event. We're going to run through the videos of some of these Earth discharges just this summer, while I mention that this should be becoming more and more prevalent. As Earth's magnetic field gears down and cosmic ray capacitization and charging by other means occurs, the electromagnetic membrane housing the Earth cell is becoming a leaky insulator, if I may. There's more coming in than the system holds, and it's discharging as big and bright a sign of the changes occurring on a planetary level as any other.
Just when you thought the year couldn't throw anything else at the world, it has. Locusts, a lot of them. Just half a square mile of swarm has up to 80 million locusts packed in it. And while the locusts may not be eating their way through the U.S., they are wreaking havoc from Africa to Asia to the Middle East. It's a huge problem for food supply in countries that are already struggling to deal with the coronavirus pandemic. And what's worse, if these record numbers of locusts aren't controlled now, the upcoming rainy season could make it a true disaster, like famine-level disaster in the eastern part of Africa.
Considering that there's 20 million people in the region already in, acute food insecurity, which is one level below famine, you can understand, the danger.
What exactly is a locust? Well, basically it's a kind of grasshopper, common to dry or arid areas, and normally, when they're on their own, they lead pretty boring lives. But when they get together, it's different. In a crowd, everything about them changes. Their color, their behavior, their appetite. They reproduce like crazy, and those crowds grow into swarms, and they're ravenous for crops, any kind of vegetation. They aren't fussy. They destroy nearly anything that's green and leafy. East Africa, Yemen, Iran, Pakistan, India, they're all on high alert. Even South America has them too. The threat is unprecedented, according to the Food and Agriculture Organization, or FAO, of the United Nations, where locusts have their own Twitter account and a division of experts tracking them. The FAO says that ultimately we can blame climate change. Extreme weather events, in this case 2 cyclones, triggered heavy rains over a remote part of the Arabian Peninsula, creating these ideal conditions for desert locusts to breed unabated. Countries juggling the pandemic, drought, and conflict lack the tools to deal with this.
The worst flooding in decades has already affected more than 37 million people across China in the summer of 2020. The flooding started in the nation's south, with the Guangxi-Zhuang Autonomous Region and Guizhou Province becoming inundated in early June. By July 19th, heavy rains had been pounding 27 of China's 31 directly administered provinces. Rising water levels along the Yangtze River have battered cities and villages in dozens of provinces along Asia's waterway. As of mid-July, more than 140 people were reported dead or missing because of the floods. The economic loss caused by the torrential rains is estimated at about 86 billion yuan, equivalent to around $12.3 billion. So why are the floods so severe in China this year? According to meteorologist Yonglan Chun from China's National Climate Center, it has to do with a subtropical high-pressure system over the northwestern Pacific that was stronger than usual this year. He said the system's intersection with cold air has led to continuous heavy rainfall in the Yangtze River.
The second wave of the floods on the Yangtze River formed in its upper reaches on July 17th. And this next wave, these floods come in waves, is expected to bring worse floods than the first. It's already impacting the Three Gorges Dam, and the flood discharge from the dam has intensified flooding in the middle and lower reaches of the Yangtze River. There are already 16 hydrological stations in the Dongting Lake area that have exceeded water levels, and 81 embankments have also exceeded their warning levels. Now, along the Yangtze River, the Qinhuai River in Jiangsu and the Chaohu Lake in Anhui have exceeded their highest water levels in history. Heavy rains in Luan and Jinzai in Anhui caused flash floods, and many roads were flooded. On July 18th, the two-way tunnel of the Jinzai high-speed rail line collapsed. And amidst all of this, on July 19th, with the inflow of water reaching unmanageable levels, authorities blasted a dam for emergency discharge in Anhui province. And in Wuwei city of Anhui, which is on the northern bank of the lower reaches of the Yangtze River, many dikes have already collapsed. On July 19th, local authorities announced that an area of 3,000 acres near this embankment should be
on the grounds of a school, a plea for help, and a desperate need for rescue. After record rains lashed parts of southwestern Japan over the weekend, some areas have been devastated. Thousands of troops have been called in to bring people to safety and search for survivors. But continued bad weather is making their work harder, and with more rain expected, over 1 million people have been told to evacuate their homes. Some are reluctant to move to the shelters due to fears of coronavirus spreading. Most have no choice but to leave. Others were left trapped. At this nursing home for the elderly, 14 people drowned, unable to escape the flooding. Emergency services and local volunteers were able to rescue around 50 other residents and staff. Japan's Prime Minister has urged everyone to do what they can to help.
Haydi bismillah. Araba gidecek. Ula gel vurur bize ha. Araba gidecek hadi. O araba gitti. Arabalar gitti. Çık taşacak şimdi çıkın. Bir dakika ben. Abi sana
¿La volvió? ¿Volvió la avioneta? Sí. No manches.
Lavadero, madre mía.
Le macchine perché non scendono?
From a stormy pattern in the north to blistering heat in the south, the U.S. has had plenty of weather headlines. But what stories might you have missed across the globe? Let's take a trip around the world to find out. We start our journey by hopping over the northern border into Canada, where severe storms and flash flooding swept through the Great White North. Heavy rain overwhelmed Toronto as it flooded parking lots and turned storm drains into geysers. Next stop, South Africa, where windy conditions dominated Cape Town's weather. Gusts over 60 miles per hour sent waves and sea foam spilling into the streets, soaking bystanders. Large waves also lashed the eastern coast of Australia. An east coast low brought huge swells to Sydney and snow to higher elevations. Residents along the coast also reported waterspouts.
Anti-Netanyahu protesters who were arrested during this weekend's mass demonstrations in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv are now out of jail. The protests turned violent as they came to a conclusion, with police clashing with largely non-violent but disobedient protesters who left designated protest zones, spilled over into the streets, blocking roads and resisting orders. For the second weekend in a row, police brought out water cannons to get the protesters to disperse. Prominent attorney and former Shin Bet security agent Gonen Ben Yitzchak lied down in front of one of those water cannons in Jerusalem and was arrested. He joins me now. Gonen, thank you so much for being with me. Why did you get under the water cannon? Why do you feel that that was necessary?
The decision to use the water cannon is illegal. Even by the protocol of the police, it's illegal. It's a very dangerous mean. On Tuesday, we had the demonstration. I saw how people were injured by the police because the use of the water cannon. I myself, I was injured on Tuesday because of the water cannon. I told the police commander that it's illegal to use it. And once he decided to use it, the only way to stop him was to lie under one of these monsters.
In your mind, why do you think then police are resorting to excessive and aggressive force against unarmed protesters?
I think that the commander of Jerusalem area police is now in an audition to get the support of Minister Ohana and become the new commander of the police, in order to show him that he should get the position. The means that the police of Jerusalem is using is very harsh, and I don't think that we need to be those who are suffering because of this audition.
But we are seeing violence among protesters. Police say that a torch was hurled at officers. An officer was pepper sprayed or maced by a protester. There's physical fighting. We see it in the video. Protesters disobeying orders and clashing with police. Isn't that alarming?
Well, we have a problem, and we have a large group of youngsters. They don't see any solution. They are very angry. They don't see any solution given by the government. And yes, we saw some very disturbing pictures during the protest. And of course, we are against the use of violence. I think that the fact that I needed to lie underneath this water cannon shows that we can make a change without being violent. And this is what I tried to tell the youngsters that took part of the protest. We're against it. But we need to understand that there is a big problem, and right now the Israeli government is not listening.
You used to be an agent for the state. You worked for the government. You mentioned the age of the protesters. Generally, it is clear that it's between the ages of 25 and 35 generally. They are young men and women. You're a little bit older, let's say, than that. So personally, what brings you out to the streets as someone who was an agent for the government?
Yeah, I want a better Israel. I want to give my children a very good future. And I see a very dangerous process in Israel, corruption, the fact that the government doesn't listen to the people. You know that I'm in the street for many years. For the last 5 years, I go out and protest. And the fact that now a new generation took over the protest, and now they want to create a new future for the state of Israel, for me is a very good sign. The fact that for now they are not ignorant anymore, and they are willing to go out, most of them people that never went out to protest. They want to create their own future, to make a better Israel. All of us love Israel. The way of how we love it or how we change it, this may be the big thing that we need to argue about. I'm very happy about those people. I can be there. I can work for them to make sure that they are not hurt. This is, my way of life.
Gonen, I want to note the government considering weekend lockdowns. They're also considering weeknight lockdowns during the evenings of the work week. There's growing concern about what that could mean for protests and demonstrations. The Justice Minister says he'll do everything he can to protect them, but there's concern. Are you concerned, and will there still be protests even this weekend?
We will go out and protest with the new law, without the new law. For me, going out and the freedom of speech is like the freedom of breathing. No one will tell me not to go out to protest. And if Netanyahu thinks that using this time and the fact that we have a disease will make us stay home, not go out and protest, is mistaken. Big mistake.
Agonen Ben Yitzchak, author, former Shin Bet agent, and now attorney representing many of these protesters. Sir, thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much.